It's the Magic Podcast for the average Planeswalker. Sweet.
All right, what's up, everybody? This is Average Planeswalker, along with what was that? Along with. It's been a minute.
What's
Along
up,
with
everybody? Yep, Oliver Pimpin.
there you go. I was taking a swig of coffee. I thought you caught that, and I was you were gonna say your thing.
Nope,
Um, so
I'm just
today
gonna let you flat.
let it go. Yeah. So today,
Let it ride.
we've been waiting for the full set to be spoiled of Marlov Manor, Murders at Karlov Manor, and they just finished recently, so that's good. So we picked what is it? About 10 cards per rarity. Is that what we did?
Uh, yeah, thereabouts. We kind of compared our list of cards that we were, kind of looking at, and then pared it down to ones that we agreed on, and then added a couple more.
Yeah.
And it's about 10 per rarity level. I tend to group Mythic and Rare together because sometimes there's really not enough in just Mythic per se to talk about 10, right? And
Right.
you also end up with some that are just like they're obviously formatted for Commander, or they're really just kind of a garbage do nothing card to begin with, regardless of the format. So they're not really worth talking about. So once you pare everything down between Mythic and Rare, I just throw it all together and say, hey, here's 10 cards.
Real quick from our sponsor here.
We are being sponsored by Ronin TCG. Yep, sponsored by myself. Ronin TCG is a card game that I've been working on, and I have a YouTube up and a YouTube channel for it, and a website if you'd like to check it out at www.ronin-tcg.com. Check it out. There's all the spoilers there. You can see the cards and how the game works, how the game plays. I do have a Discord for the game with testers only in there currently, and we are testing the game on TTS, which is Tabletop Simulator. And if you want to be a tester, hit me up. Let me know in the comments. Go check out that the YouTube channel, Ronin TCG. It's a trading card game based off my own martial arts experience. So yeah, I'd really appreciate it. If you do want to be in the testers, TTS is $20 off of Steam. I don't get any money from that. I don't get any sponsorship from them or anything. But that is where I have the game loaded currently, and that's where we play. So if you're interested, definitely hit me up and let me know. I appreciate it. Ronin TCG, go check it out.
Ronin TCG. Go check that out. All right.
Well,
What
I
do we
guess
got?
we should, since we did talk about working these cards, a little bit of a disclaimer. A couple things we looked at. One, we looked at cards that we're interested in, right? So, like, there's a lot of spoiler videos out there from a whole bunch of really big and popular content creators. Some of our cards might be some that they've already talked about. I actually haven't watched any of that stuff leading up until
I
now. I've
watched
just
a
kind of
lot.
been waiting. Did you? Yeah, and see, I haven't watched any, so that's why I'm like, I'm cold calling these cards, and I went through them earlier today, and I went, boom, these are ones that I could talk about with people, right? And
Yep.
then kind of the other thing is like, we'll probably talk about some that other people aren't talking about, and a lot of that may just have to do with our play style, or a couple of these I look at, I'm like, man, I really think this is more of a sleeper than people are giving it credit for, right?
Yeah.
And so as we go through this, viewers beware.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, you and I both know I'm a huge 100% brewer. And so I look
Mhm.
at these cards from a completely different perspective than the majority of players that play the game. And I'm like alone in right field. Everybody's in left field, and I'm over there in right field just by myself.
Yeah,
My
and you
brewers.
constantly, just the way your brain works, man. Sometimes you'll be like, "Yeah, but check this out." I'm like, oh man, I never thought of that. And then, like, we'll play some test games or whatever. I'm like, "What is he doing?" And then you just come out of right field with something off the wall, and I'm like, "Only Anthony would look at that card and go, I have an
Yeah,
idea."
yeah. Some of them work, some of them don't, but that's kind of the fun part about brewing.
Yeah,
So,
that's where the brewing part comes in.
yeah. So let's go from the top of the list. Let me see and pull this up here.
Yeah,
Um, all right. So Mythic Rare.
Alquist Croft, Master Sleuth.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so we have Alquist, Prophet, Master Sleuth, which is a 1, a white, and a blue, and he's a 3/3 legendary human detective. And I've been watching this thing because I need like 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
because this card is extremely good.
Yeah, just look at the price point on it already.
Yeah, and that's why I've been kind of waiting to pull the trigger on it. Probably in about a couple more days, actually. By the weekend, I'm gonna go ahead and start picking up all my singles because you know me, that's all I do. I pick up my singles.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, but this card has Vigilant. And that's
Yes.
oh my God, that is so relevant in a
That's a
meta
really big
with
deal for this card.
yeah, in a meta with Wandering Emperor still being a thing, plus the
Yep.
ability that's on it that is kind of reminds me of Sphinx Rev. It's exactly
Yes.
Sphinx Rev. What am I talking
Yeah.
about?
So kind of the notes I made on it, right? So like objectively, just from looking at this card, it's a 3/3 for 3, right? That's a decent rate, it's normal rate, but it has vigilance. So right there, you've got a below rate card. Um, and then he creates a clue token when he ETBs. So even if he gets eliminated, right? Like somebody just murders him right off the bat, like you still get this clue token. So he effectively replaces himself in your hand. Yeah, you got to pour 2 mana into it, either now or a little bit later, but it's still a 1-for-1 replacement in your hand for a 3/3 for 3 with vigilance, right? And
Yeah,
then they stapled Sphinx's Rev onto this sucker.
yeah,
Now, the thing that I love about this Sphinx's Rev ability is it says sacrifice a clue, draw
right,
X cards and gain X life, right? Not sacrifice X clues, draw X cards and gain X life, right? Because that's a huge difference. I only have to have one, and it can be the one that he created, right? So I don't have to it's not like some of the old blood token abilities where it's like, sacrifice X number of blood tokens or something like that, right?
correct.
This is
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
you have to have one on the board, and that could be I have a 1 white drop that creates it investigates, right? We'll talk about it a little bit later. I can play that later, and then immediately Sphinx's rep this sucker. So
Yeah.
that's really a big deal.
Well, the card that we had prior to this, which was after Sphinx Revelation left
Hmm.
rotation, was during the first Ixalan, and that was
Yep.
Azor the Lawbringer. And I played
Hmm.
the crap out of him, and that's a legendary Sphinx. And so he was a 6/6 flyer for 6. And when it entered the battlefield, each opponent can't cast instant sorcerer spells during that player's next turn. So that just
Yep.
shut them down for a turn. But he
Pretty
also,
much.
when he attacked, had the Sphinx Revelation attached to him. So that was
Hmm.
kind of the downside to Azor is the fact that he had to attack. So I think in
Yeah.
comparison, by making Alquist have vigilance, you don't have to worry about,
Yep.
okay, do I want to Sphinx Rev or do I want to attack? You can do both.
Correct.
Um,
Well, here's the other thing that's great about it too, in my opinion, is you play him on turn 3, you create a clue token. You go to turn 4, you attack with him. Your opponent goes to Doomblade him, right? You can go ahead and dump 4 mana into him, sack that clue. You're only going to draw 1 card and gain 1 life, but you were only going to draw 1 card off that clue anyway. Now you're getting a
sure.
life off of it, right?
Yeah.
And so he's a little bit more versatile in that regard. And if you do manage to keep him on the board or protect him for a couple of turns, right? Now you're looking at like, oh, it's turn 6 when I attack and I tap it,
Right. Yep.
gain 3 life and draw X cards for the 1 clue token. So the longer he sticks around, the more valuable it becomes. But that's a bad thing for your opponent. So there's actually an incentive to remove this card relatively quickly,
100%.
especially if you play him turn 3 after you played a Denick on turn 2. Come on, man, like it's going to start running away from there. You got to deal with this guy.
Yeah. What makes him so much better is if you pair him with Averbrook Caretaker. I just throw it out there.
Oh my God, here we go again.
And then he has hexproof, and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
I'm sure that's going to come up a couple more
Oh my
times.
God, that card's MVP. Um,
Hmm.
next we have, well, obviously, homeboy right here,
Yeah, Anzrak, the Quake Mole.
Nandrag the Quake Mole. 2 red and a green for an 8/4 mole god. Whenever he becomes blocked, untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, there is an additional combat phase, which has an activated ability of 3, 2 red, 2 green, and he must be blocked each combat this turn if able.
Yep.
You can go ahead and pop off on this first if you want.
So first of all, right, like way above rate an 8/4 for 4, right? Typically you would see like a 4/4 or 5/5 for 4
Yeah, there's no
for a below
downside.
rate card. No, there's no downside to this
There's no
guy.
downside to this.
No, I really don't care about his must be blocked ability. It's
Neither do
cool,
I.
I guess. Like, if you got that kind of mana, have fun.
Sure.
But what really matters is when he is blocked, and you almost have to block him, right? Because he's hitting you for 45% of your life total.
Yeah.
Untap each creature you control, and after this combat, there's an additional one. That's not a small thing. And the last time we saw that, God, what was his name? It was like the Minotaur or something. I don't remember. That was Theros Beyond Death, I think, was the last time we saw an effect or ability like this. It was a big deal. Like, it literally broke stalemates in combat because your opponent had to make blocks in combat 1, and then you just roll to combat 2, and anything that they didn't hold back, they're taking it to the face, right? So
The
this is not a
6-drop.
small deal. He
was in
Well,
Zendikar.
yeah,
He was
somewhere
in
in there.
Mythic. Yeah.
Yep. And this dude, right? So, like you said, it is an 8/4 for 4. That by itself is just worth playing because he has no downside. He doesn't intertap. He doesn't come in with a stun counter or something silly, right? Like, there's no waiting. Like, I just all of a sudden have an 8/4 sitting there on the battlefield ready to block,
And good
right?
luck with
Block
that.
like I can block your 6/6 or your 7/7 easy peasy. I don't care, right? I'll even take a little bit of trample damage as long as I get that dude off the board, right? But then the fact that just like your opponent's incentivized to block this sucker. Now, that's not to say that he's not easy to remove, right? He's only got a 4, but that's relatively easy to remove in the current standard format. You've got things like Destroy Evil, and you've got not Doomblade. Help me out here.
Go for the throat.
Go for the throat. Things like that, right? So, like, it's not to say, and then a card we'll talk about later is also really good at dealing with this dude. But that's not to say he's not easy to remove, just that you kind of have to, right? Like, they have to have hard removal in hand, or they're going to block him and you're going to swing in for more.
Yeah, I would agree. This dude is like we said, there's no downside, and he is the pinnacle of chump blockers. But like, normally, what would you do for against an 8/4 that doesn't have trample? You throw a 1/1 in front of it. But now you
Yeah,
can't
just
throw a
heroic
1/1 in
block with
front
a
of it.
1/1.
Yeah, you heroic block, exactly.
Look, Vanguard, we have victory staring right at us. All we need to do is chump block and wait, what block? Martyr block? Hero block.
So you can't heroic block with the 1/1 with this because
Correct.
you give them a second combat, so you have to spot removal or board wipe. And even if you do block, you have to make sure that you kill it.
Correct. Yeah.
Be,
Yeah. You're going to double block this dude if you
you
have
have to
to,
double
right?
or
Like,
triple or put the shield rid in front of it and death touch it, whatever. You know what I mean? Like you have to
yeah.
get rid of it because he's just going to keep coming back. And as far as I'm reading this correctly, um, whenever he comes blocked, if he swings again and you block him again, there's another combat until your creatures are gone or you take it to the face. So, like this could
Oh,
just keep
no.
going.
I didn't even
That's
notice that the first time, but it doesn't say only
it.
once per turn.
Correct. Yes, it doesn't say once per
Whenever
turn.
he
So
becomes blocked, untap each creature you control. Period. After this combat phase, there's an additional one. Yeah.
correct.
So if you just
So
keep heroic blocking this sucker, you're
yeah,
just going to keep taking it until you remove him or take
till
8
you get
damage.
rid of him. Yeah. That
Well, and
ability.
I mean, that second ability, yeah, it must be block each combat this turn if able, right? So if you just use it the first turn or the first combat, right? If he survives first combat, then second combat, third, like they have to continue to block him and trigger his first ability, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the easy answer is like you said, death touch him, hard removal from the hand, right? He's easy to remove for 2 mana,
Mhm.
but you have to like it's got to be dealt with. So good card.
Case of the Ransacked Lab is 2 and a blue enchantment. Instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 left to cast. To
Yeah.
solve, you cast 4 or more instant sorcery spells a turn, and if you solve it, whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, you draw a card.
Yeah, so real quick, because you and I were talking about this the other day, there's a lot of confusion surrounding how the case mechanics resolve, and you and I talked about how the reminder text right there it's kind of poorly worded, right?
It
Um,
is, yeah.
yeah, solve is a triggered ability, right? And so you had pointed out the way it's worded, it kind of sounds like if it's not solved, you automatically solve it, right?
Correct, yeah.
And I understand that perspective, and I know like Friday when I judge the pre-release, I'm gonna have to explain this card like 9 freaking times, right? But the way it works is at the beginning of your end step. If it is unsolved, you attempt to solve it, and you solve it by meeting the conditions of the second part. So if during that turn the conditions of the second part were met, then it becomes solved. Once solved, it remains solved unless it changes zones, or I didn't see any cards that are like, unsolve a case. Like, that's not really a thing, right? So like it would have to change zones either by being removed or blinked. You could blink it, right? There's things like that you could do. But just like if you're there's a couple of cases, at least one that I know of, that becomes a creature when it becomes solved, right? Or it enchants a creature.
Yeah.
So like your opponent can take control of it, but it doesn't change zone, so it stays solved. So as
If
we
you
go through,
leyline bind it, then that will do it.
right, that'll do it because it changes zones, right? Like it exiles it from the battlefield, it changes zone. The next time it comes back in, it's not going to be solved anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this card, good card. And
So this is
one of the things, look, I mean, $5 for a rare, right? Like on pre-sale, I think this is going to go up a little bit, honestly, because one of the things that some of us here have been talking about is like, we're kind of anticipating the return of Jeskai control, which is like everybody's favorite, right? Like, America, fuck
you and
yeah.
I have been talking
But
about that for about almost 2 months now.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
Jeskai
100%.
control
Well,
is
just,
coming
I mean,
back.
just with Lightning Helix coming back into the format.
That's what's bringing it back.
Never mind the other uncommon we're going to talk about a little bit later. I think is going to help a lot with that. Plus, like War Leader's Call, we're going to talk about that too. So, there's a lot of potential in there. And this right here, I was talking to Joe earlier today, and we're talking about Jeskai, and he mentioned something. I was like, yeah, but what if you just go Is It? Like this right here turns your 3 and 4 mana spells into 2 and 3 mana spells. That one extra mana can be a big deal for like Is It prowess, right? That we've seen try to find its way into the meta for a little bit now, and even like blue white prowess, or I'm sorry, yeah, some blue white prowess in there. Like they've tried to find a place in the format, but they're kind of like your payoffs weren't real great. But now some of your more expensive spells, like your like your well, yeah, but you got to be careful with Deluge because you only get to look at a number of cards equal to the amount of mana you spent.
That's true.
Right? So if you only spent 3, you look at 3 cards. But I'm thinking
Silver
things
Scrutiny
like Silver Scrutiny, Devious Cover Up is a great example, right?
Impulse, it costs 1.
Yep, Impulse costs 1, but Devious Cover Up is a fucking counter spell now that just, or, it's a Dissipate that gives you 2 extra cards, right? So I think this has a lot more potential than people are giving it credit for at face value. Now, that's not to say that as the meta settles out, the potential will fall off. Just, I think that it has more potential than most people are giving it credit for right now.
I haven't seen anybody really talk bad about this card. So I haven't really seen anybody talk very well about it. It's kind of been under the radar for some reason. It's touched upon, but not really like ooh, But I think so. My con about this card, the only con I have is my only concern as to why it may, if it doesn't see play, it's probably because of this reason. It's because it costs 3. But if it cost 1 in a blue, it'd be a mythic and it'd be broken. So it's like
Oh yeah, it'd be broken.
you're in that zone where a card um it costs 1 more and then it's not playable, but if it costs 1 less, it'd be banned. You know what I mean? So it's like hard to do
Yeah,
that. So
exactly. Yeah.
you have to go with the one that says, okay, at least it'll be in the format and see if people want to play with it.
Yeah.
Now the pro of
I think
this,
honestly, to me, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
but the pro of this card is you don't have to solve it. You just play it and you have training grounds. Like
Yep.
that's like you just have training grounds and standard again. If you do
Mhm.
solve it, cool. But I mean, if you're playing control or some sort of deck like that, you might not be worried about drawing a bunch of extra cards, like working your way to solve it. Like me personally, I would just play this just for the training grounds effect. Like that's it.
Sure.
If I
Yep.
can
Well,
solve
that's not a bad deal.
no, not at all. For 3, no. Like training grounds is what, 1 blue, right? If I remember right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not happening again as standard.
Yeah. Right.
This is the best way we're gonna get it. So
I think that the solved ability of this card is worth the pursuit, right? Because any good like Jeskai control or even like Is It Prowess, right? Like they're gonna want to replace those cards in hand. This could you would almost say this could be Blue's Beanstalk, right?
Correct.
The
Yeah.
real con that I see to this card is the solve condition, which is you cast 4 or more instants or sorceries on this turn. So the reason I see that as a problem is because any good blue deck is not wanting to spend that much mana on their own turn or any turn really, right? Because it could be no at the beginning of your end step, so it has to be your turn. So basically, you have to spend a lot of mana on your turn,
Right.
and then it leaves you really vulnerable and without potential interaction on your opponent's turn. And that's really not where a blue based control deck wants to be. Even if you're like an Is It Prowess deck, it's almost kind of not where you want to be because you still want to have maybe some removal or like March of Swirling Mist, right? Requires X, so you might want to have 3 or 4 opens. So you're talking about 5 mana for that card. Well, if I just blew 4 spells to solve this sucker, it's going to be a whole turn cycle. I guarantee you my opponent's going to take advantage of it because I would. Like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
cool, you
100%.
solved that card. I'm going to crush you this turn.
And that's why I say like just dropping this for a 3-drop and not worrying about solving it is going to be the best part of this card, I think, because
Yeah,
it's like I like you said, that counterspell that costs 4 and costs 3,
Divas cover up. Yeah,
Diva's Cover Up. Dropping
yeah,
that down 1 mana makes a whole hell of a lot of a
yeah.
difference. Like
Big deal.
imagine having a Dissipate. You now have a counterspell in your hand that exiles. Like
Hmm.
it turns your Dissipate into an exile effect counterspell in standard.
Yes,
So that is where I think the power is just by playing this and don't worry about solving it. And
yeah.
that's me personally because when I play control, I'm not worried about drawing a ton of cards. I'm gonna put more
I'm not
threats
either.
out there. I'm gonna counter
Yeah,
your
because I'm going to
spells.
run
I'm
some
gonna
card
kill your
draw or
stuff.
selection anyway, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, like I'm not really super worried about that. So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like maybe this is just a really good training ground in standard again.
It's training grounds and standard again in my opinion. But that doesn't mean that the mono blue deck could easily do this because
Oh yeah,
when you have this when you have this case out plus you have a Haughty Djinn out, now your spells cost 2
yeah,
less. I
yep.
mean, now you're pretty much a brainstorming or not brainstorming, but yeah, maybe kind of a brainstorm with what's that card that draws
Kind
3?
of.
And then you have to discard a land or 2 cards, whatever that card is. I can't
Yep.
remember what it is, but blue plays it.
Yeah,
So
that's
essentially,
one blue now. Yeah,
it's 1 blue now. So and
yeah,
then plus you still have your negates, which cost 1, and then your make disappears, which
yep,
cost 1. So that's where this deck
yep.
is easily slot into, because on turn 1 you play what's the creature that's a 1-drop and it could flip if you top deck an instant sorcery. Oh, I can't think of it. Turn
Yep.
3, you now have a choice. Play this or a Haughty Djinn. Personally, I'd probably play Haste first if I was playing against a blue deck to see if I could draw out the counter. That way I know my next turn I have a higher percentage chance to play Haughty Djinn because they already used their counter.
Well, and I want to play case first because you don't ever really want to play Haughty Djinn until turn 4 anyway. When you have at least one blue up to
Correct.
hold like a
Yeah,
Make Disappear or something to protect it,
yeah.
right? So yeah,
So I mean it kind of curves out for that mono blue deck, and I think that's where this
I
just
think so.
slots
Yeah,
right in.
sure.
So yeah, it's definitely a really good card. What do we
All
got?
right,
Deadly Cover Up.
Deadly Cover Up.
Deadly
Oh
Cover
yes,
Up.
this card. Yeah. So this is
3
like a stone brain stapled onto not
damnation.
quite as good as Sunfall, but it cost as much as Sunfall. But I'm really more looking at like
It's like a
well,
better
yeah, I mean
damnation.
Damnation's not bad. Yeah.
Um,
Gix's Command, right? So Gix's Command is kind of a pseudo board wipe because you typically get rid of a bunch of smaller things and then make them
mhm.
sack a big thing, right? But like this just destroys all creatures, period, in
Yeah.
black. Like this is just a straight destroy everything in black, right?
At the
For 5
very
mana, which
bottom floor for 5 mana, destroy all creatures in black. That's what it is. Correct.
it's a Sunfall. Yeah, it doesn't exile and give you a one-sided token, but for
It's just a
black, this
black
is
board
kind of a
wipe.
big deal. It's a black board wipe, and that's a really big deal because typically we see things like drag to the bottom or what was the other one that gave everything like neg 4, right? Like there's some conditions on them,
Hmm.
right? Where maybe it doesn't get rid of everything, or even like Gix's
You can only
Command
choose
doesn't always get
non-legendary
rid
or
of everything.
legendary.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas this is just like black board wipe, yay. But if you collected evidence, it's a stone brain too. You just stapled a stone brain to a sunfall for black. Like, this is a good card. I like this card. I'm going to play this in limited for damn sure. And then if I'm honestly thinking this is going to slot into standard somewhere as a 1 or 2 of, especially
Yeah,
in the mono black decks, because this is what they were missing.
this is going to. I hate to say it because me and Domain, we're just like homies. This would most likely probably replace the drag to the bottoms I play in my decks.
Hmm.
Just because now I can hit Italis, I can hit
Hmm.
Atraxas, I can hit
Hmm.
anything that is 7 and above now.
Yeah.
Because drag to the bottom was capped out at 6 because you have domain 5
Yeah.
plus 1 6, so that's where it capped out at. And for the most part, that was enough, and it has been for the time being. But now that we just have a 5-drop for all creatures, like, cool, that's what I'm gonna do. And then I'm
Yeah.
gonna collect evidence, get rid of all the Italis or all of your Atraxas, and
Yeah.
I'm good. So yeah,
Yeah.
this card
Like,
is
this
really
card is definitely bad for my domain deck. I'm gonna be honest. I think domain's out the door as soon as Markov drops, um, or MKM
there's
drops.
there's a lot coming out that's gonna change the format.
I think
Um,
so too. I think they did that on purpose, right? Because we're starting year 3, right? So what that means is this time next year or a little earlier, right? So around October-ish, all of that stuff that's 2 years old now will be 3 years old and rotating out,
which is like
right?
Kamigawa,
So,
Innistrad stuff,
yep, yeah, all Innistrad,
Dominaria.
Kamigawa, yeah, I think Dominaria, Brothers War, All Will Be One, Gangs of New York, right? Like, this stuff is going to disappear.
Hmm.
And so I think this is, I don't want to say corset, but, we're gonna lose Shieldred, right? Like, I think a lot of the stuff they're printing now is going to become some of those pivot cards that you kind
Yeah,
of see in all of the decks right now. We're going to lose Atroxa, right? So, like, a lot of the stuff they're printing is going to be pivot cards. We're going to lose Sunfall. We're going to lose Depopulate, right? Like, these are things that are going to have to be replaced in one form or another, and the meta needs to shift a little bit, right? Like,
yeah,
you and I talked about it when they announced the 3-year rotation, that we really felt like it was going to get stale. And that
it
is
did.
true. It did get stale. Um, what I will say to that is, while it is stale, there are more varieties. There is a larger number of tier 1 decks right now than I have seen in standard in years, probably a decade, right? Like, there are 5 decks that are solidly in the tier 1 meta, and not one of them is good enough to dominate the other 4, right? So I think it was kind of a give and take situation with that 3-year rotation, where we're going to kind of have a much more fixed meta for longer, but that meta is going to be broader, and there's going to be a larger variety of decks tailored to the kinds of decks people like to play. And so I think with MKM, they set out to print some cards that were going to be some of those critical or crux or pivotal cards that we're going to see played for another 2 years as that other stuff rotates out. And that's okay. But yeah, this set is definitely going to shake things up. And I think this is one of the cards that's going to do it.
This is gonna be this is gonna be the definitive board wipe once rotation hits, and so it just kind of the unfortunate thing of the fact of the matter is that because this is in black, like, I get it, it's great to see a black board wipe. We haven't seen one in years, maybe even a decade.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that just means that black is going to stay relevant in the next
Yeah.
meta for the next 3 years, which we need a shift from black. We need a shift from black and red, honestly.
Yeah.
We've had Rakdos
We do.
far
Yeah.
too long,
Yep.
far too
I agree.
long. We've had this archetype longer than I've seen any archetype in a in standard format. And I think that's the
Mhm.
reason why I don't agree with the 3-year rotation anymore, is because A, things get stale. Now, again, my situation where I'm playing arena almost, well, obviously daily and for hours at a time.
Daily and
That
exclusively, because you're not playing on paper with a local meta.
exactly, yeah. So personally, it's stale for me quick because I'm just
Yeah.
constantly playing. But at the same time, 3 years is a lot longer of a meta shift than people think.
It
It
is,
is
yeah.
a lot longer. And the worst part about it is you're almost getting into, I mean, not in the vicinity by any means of a commander card pool, but you're getting to too big of a card pool for standard.
Yeah.
Like
I thought about that a couple of times because like
Pioneer
we
has
have
a
cards.
hold on. Pioneer has a huge pool of cards already because it spans over
Oh,
so many sets. Modern
yeah.
has an even bigger one. And then you have
Uh,
Legacy, then you have Vintage, then you have Commander after that. Standard was the one where we didn't have to worry about so many cards
right.
in the pool. And when you're building decks or when you're min-maxing a deck and you're like, man,
Yeah.
I forgot about this card. Well, now I got to take this
Yeah.
out, but I can't because this is so good. Like
Hmm.
it's a detriment to the format because you're not playing the cards that are actually good because
Right.
something is better, but it shouldn't be that way. And I think that's the issue with a
I
3 year
agree.
rotation. We need to go back to a 2 year rotation, and we need if we do stay with a 3 year rotation, we need more bans. And I know people hate it, but you know what? That's the only way you can shake up
Mm,
the meta and you can keep it more active and able to play more of the cards that are in the pool. Like
I,
we just
I
need more
I think
bans.
meta has stayed more ban resilient by being wider, but one of the things that I enjoyed about standard was it did rotate relatively quickly. Like you look at it and you're like, oh shit, this card is 2 years old, but that's not that long in Magic terms, right? Because you're talking about 9 sets, and that sucker's gone, right? Every 3 months, uh, and so it's like one of the things I enjoyed about standard was everybody kind of because your card pool was limited, everybody had the choice of the same cards, right?
Sure.
But your left and right lateral limits were more narrow, and so it was really about finding the best way to play the available cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, that some the pros found a way to min max the crap out of that to the point that like the meta was quote settled or fixed. That
Hmm.
wasn't always true, right? Because like you and I, we've always talked about, ooh, what if you do this, or like meta breaking decks, right?
Yeah.
Where these 2 or 3 decks are winning everything, but I built a deck that kind of just pwns them all by virtue of everybody else playing them. So I like a more limited format. I do think that the format would be healthier in a 2 instead of 3 year rotation.
Yeah.
And we've been joking about I'm a brick caretaker, but in this much wider pool, there are a lot of really good cards that
There
A get
are.
forgotten
Yeah.
and B don't get played. Because
Yep.
like you said, when you're min maxing with such a large card pool, you're just having to give up stuff that's otherwise a really good card.
Hmm.
And that sucks. It's a feel bad factor too, right? So
It is. Like I mean, we there was a time when the Innistrad set came out, werewolves were everywhere. It was really cool to
yeah.
see the wolves coming back again, and then like whatever set came after that came out, and it just pushed them aside. We haven't seen that since.
Hmm.
And we have a
Nope.
werewolf planeswalker. We have Arlen. Look at Sorin. We have a 4-drop
Yeah.
Sorin that draws us cards, makes tokens, and then hits an opponent for
Yeah.
14. But we like, where do you
Yeah.
slot him in?
You
He
don't?
protects
Not right
himself.
now.
That's what I'm saying. Like he protects himself. He's really, really good. But
Mhm.
you can't slot him in. And I think that's the issue. But anyway, rant.
We
Dead,
digress.
yes.
That's why
Deadly
people come
cover
here,
up.
man. They listen to us rant. That's what they want to hear.
Deadly cover up. Definitely going to be a playable
Good
card.
card. Good
100%.
card. Good.
Very
Yep.
good. Yeah.
Definitely playable. All right.
Uh,
Doorkeeper Thrall.
we
Oh,
got homeboy
yes.
here. Um,
Yeah. I love this card.
so this dude is just like really good. I'm gonna put like probably 2 or 3 in my sideboard, just like what I did with the
Hmm.
original Doorkeeper Thrall, which was the
Yep.
fairy. What was the fairy?
Yep. I
Oh,
know what you're
I can't
talking about.
remember. Yeah, but but with flash, flying artifacts and creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. This kills the domain deck. Honestly, this also
100%.
kills. Hmm, it kills damn near any deck at this point because there's so many ETBs in the format. It's ridiculous. I
Yeah.
remember looking through the cards on Arena, and I was like, what was the last set we had? I don't even remember. Eldraine?
No, Lost Caverns of Ixalan.
Oh, Caverns Ixalan. Okay, so I think half,
A lot
a
of
little,
artifacts get shut off by this sucker.
yeah, I think half or a little bit more of that set are ETBs.
Yep.
Like it's crazy the amount of ETBs. So Doorkeeper
Yep.
Thrall is just going to wreck so much.
Yep.
I mean, there's nothing bad to say about it whatsoever. Sure, it can die,
Yeah,
whatever. It doesn't
this
matter.
card sucks the life out of the domain deck, right? Like, I mean, there's some things that kind of get around it, like Archangel of Wrath gets around it, but
I mean, you could Tide Shaper or Tidebinder Shaper or whatever, or Tashana's
yeah,
Tidebinder. You could.
Tashana's Tidebinder, great card. Don't get me wrong, but the problem with well, I mean, Tashana costs one more and it's blue. So if you're not in blue, right? This card right here is a great sideboard card in any white X humans deck, right? That sounds really
Yeah.
weird because it's not a human, but they
Soldier
suffer
or whatever.
from your opponent ETBing the crap out of your stuff,
Yeah.
either for removal or card advantage, whatever, right? This thing just shuts it off. And
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, it's a 1/2 flyer with flash. That by itself ain't freaking bad, man.
No.
But the
The
fact that
fairy.
it just shuts off those ETBs is like busted. I'm
Yeah.
actually surprised that it's only a $5 pack rare.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Did that fairy have flash?
The
I
blue
can't
one?
remember.
Yeah.
No, the original white one. The original white one.
Oh, you're talking about God, I would have to do a search.
Let me
What
see.
set was that
If I
from?
go, that was original Eldraine. There she is, right here. Whisper. Hushbringer.
Yep. Hushbringer. Yep.
This is what the card is essentially, right? Is Hushbringer. So it didn't have flash.
Oh,
So
it's
we
a
had.
better Hushbringer.
Yes, that's
Because
what I was trying to.
Hushbringer didn't have flash, and
You
she didn't
lose
turn off
lifelink.
artifacts.
Yeah, you lose lifelink, but you gain the flash.
I don't need
So
that. I don't need
remember,
lifelink. I need flash and
you know what's
artifacts.
crazy is like we played the crap out of this card, and we played it
Mm-hmm.
main phase. So the fact that we
Yeah.
now have it for flash at instant speed with
Yeah.
Atraxa on the stack, I'm gonna flash in
Yeah.
Doorkeeper. With Invasion of Zendikar on the stack, I'm a flash in Doorkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
With any
So
battle,
the only advantage that like Tashana's Tidebinder has is she just turns Atrox into a 7/7 body, right? This dude doesn't. I mean, she's with Doorkeeper. She still has flying, lifelink, death touch, and vigilance. But the caveat to that is they didn't get the card advantage,
right?
right?
Plus
That's what really matters.
the other plus to Doorkeeper Thrall is, I mean, nowadays there's very few monocolor decks, right? So you're either playing 2 to 3 colors,
Mm-hmm.
2 to 3 colors. So you play this in response to an Atraxa, it hits, ETB doesn't go off, and then you go for the throw Atraxa. So it's for 4 mana rather than with the Shana Tidebinder. You have only 4 mana up. You can only stop it, and sure she's a 7/7 now, but you have to wait until your main phase to kill it now. So the
Yeah.
fact that it is one
Yep.
less,
True
like you were
story.
mentioning, it makes it more viable
Huge
than
difference.
Tashana's
Yeah.
Tidebinder.
Well, yeah, because then you can keep up mana for something else too, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Like maybe the second Doorkeeper, but now you just spent 4 mana to shut off their Atraxa and they burn their only removal spell. Who knows? Like there's lots of situations we can what if the crap out of it to death, but
Right.
this is
Yeah.
just
No.
objectively a good card.
All right. Now this
All
one
right.
I am excited
Oh
for.
yes, me too.
So this was the card I was telling you about that when I first looked at it pre-order wise, it was like at $14-15, and now it's like $4 to $3. So
Oh, that's good. That's
that tells
about
me
right.
that people are thinking very low about this card. This card is amazing. The 5
It's
drop
really
5/5
good.
flyer.
Yeah, so
Like
that's right. Like
an
right off the
investigate.
bat,
Like
twice. Yeah, he replaces himself twice
yeah.
for 1 less mana.
Hmm.
Right? So it costs you 1 less mana to replace him not once, but twice.
Yeah, and then he has the ability to tap 1, sacrifice an artifact, and gain your choice of Vision's Lifelink, Hexproof, or until it turns. So this is kind of comparable to like how Dream
Yeah.
Trawler was, and Dream Trawler was a
Yeah, kind
menace.
of. Oh, God, I
Um,
love that card. God, I
yeah,
was looking at him the other day and missed that card.
yeah, I play him in Explorer. I still play him in Pioneer. I try to fit him in
Good.
Modern. Um, but the thing about this card that I love so much is that at the very bottom of it, it's still a 5/5 for 5 flyer evasion.
Yes. Yep. Yeah,
And
so
not
he's already below rate, right? So
yeah,
5/5 for 5, but then you add flying, puts him below rate. But the other thing, so like we were talking about our first card, right? Alquist. Um, it does something more with the clue tokens, right? Because you can sacrifice any artifact, but really we're going to end up sacrificing one of those clue tokens in standard, right? Because there's not a lot of other artifacts we're going to play. So now your artifacts are utilitarian, kind of like with the blood tokens where they did, you could use them for a couple different things. You could sack them for a creature effect, or you could sack it, draw a card, stuff like that. But now these clue tokens are generating more than just 2 mana card advantage, right?
Yeah.
Now I can pay a mana, 1, not 2, and then sacrifice one of those clue tokens he made, right? So he ETBs, investigate twice. That's a triggered ability. They have to remove it while that triggered ability is on the stack, because if they don't, I pay 1 mana. Like if they wait till the end of turn, I got to pay 1 mana, sacrifice one of my clues, get max proof.
And that was the thing with
suck a
Dreamtrawler.
nerd.
That was the exact thing with
Yeah.
Dreamtrawler. Is like,
Mhm.
try to kill it. In response, I'll discard a card, make it hexproof. And they try to kill again, I'll discard a card, make it hexproof. Like,
Yep.
as long as you, that was a so good thing.
Yeah, this card has the potential to win the mana war, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you can, like, honestly, I wouldn't play this till turn 6. Because with so much
Correct.
spot removal rolling around, I want to have the 1 mana protected for 1 turn. Because once I have 1 mana to protect it for 1 turn, I don't have to play anything else. Honestly,
No.
you have to. The opponent has to have a board wipe, because I'm just going to keep giving them
Yep.
hexproof. As long as I
Yep.
create more tokens, then I'm just going to keep giving them hexproof.
Yeah.
And then
Good
against a mono red deck, I mean, what are they going to do against the 5/5?
They're going to have to play the 5 damage removal card, but it's got hexproof, so
Exactly, yeah. So this just like wins games against mono red too, as long as you can survive to like turn 5.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that card. I'm so stoked for that one.
Me too.
All right, so Helen.
Kellen, Inquisitive Prodigy. Oh
So
yes, this card.
Before we get to the card, okay. So I'm wondering, you're not a lore person as much. You want to be, but you just don't got the time for it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know who Kellen is in the story that I just found out?
Who's that?
And this is going to tell you how broken he's going to be.
Gideon, right?
No.
Oh.
He's gonna be a broken planeswalker in the future, because they're setting up Kellen to be a planeswalker. He's going through all the metas.
Okay. Because I know we've seen an iteration of Kellen before, right?
Correct. We've seen him in white. We've seen him in red. Now we see him in green,
Yep.
blue. We need to see him in black.
Mm,
His father is Oko.
Oh. Okay. I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
knew we'd seen Kellen before. I didn't know that piece.
Yeah. So like you can kind of see the stream of the yellow, blues, and greens, kind of like how Oko's card had in the pre-con, like when he was first when he first came out.
And
So,
now
like,
he's got his father's colors.
Yeah. So we need to see, once we see him in black, I think that's going to be the end of like the Kellen colors, and then he's going to have his spark awoken, because Mark Bathwater, shout out to Alpha Investments and Rudy there. he said that Kellen is going to be the main character throughout the multiverse for like the next few years. So my question is like, as of right now, they're not representing him as a planeswalker because he's been a creature this entire time. But how is he getting from plane to plane if his spark hasn't ignited yet? So I'm very curious as to how that's happening, because he was on Ixalan.
Well,
now he's.
Because I thought they tore down the walls of the multiverse, and you don't need a spark anymore to travel after the invasion. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. That makes sense.
Collision of the spheres. Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, well, that's done. So anyway, we can go ahead and get back to this card.
So a couple things I like about this card right off the bat. One, we have not traditionally seen adventures outside of an Eldraine set, right?
Sure.
So this card right off the bat. So remember last week we were just kind of chatting. I was like, man, I'd really like to see some like evergreen abilities or mechanics revisited, right? And like I think kind of one of the last times we did that was with the snow mechanic during Kaldheim, but they really kind of didn't do anything impactful with that, because I really would have liked to have seen some snow permanents or mechanics that impacted formats that were already using old snow mechanics from like Ice Age block, right?
Because
there were some
beyond standard. You mean?
Right,
Oh,
exactly.
okay,
Right. So
okay.
like if we revisit, because like you and I were talking about, like they're making, they power creeped morph. Okay, well maybe we don't need a power creep morph. Maybe we just need more morph cards, right?
Sure.
Like
Yep.
to revisit some of these mechanics, but make them worthwhile, right? Like make them valuable outside of standard, so that when they do eventually rotate, or they're impactful right now, and they'll be impactful later because once they do rotate out of standard, they still exist. They're cards,
Yeah,
right? And so I think this is a good step in the right direction,
I
where
agree.
this is the first adventure card we've seen outside of an Eldraine set. So we're
True.
not limited to an Eldraine block constructed to see adventures.
I didn't really catch that. So I'm glad you brought that up because adventure is one that I really like and I'm glad to see. I hope we do get more of it because I think adventure has so much possibility on different type of mechanics and how you can play the
Hmm.
game. It brings a whole new
Yeah.
world to the game because it's left in exile. There's a lot of things you
Yeah.
can do with things in
Hmm.
exile, you know? So
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
like the mechanic. I like the adventure mechanic. So I didn't notice
Me too.
that, you know? I just realized how good the card is.
Yeah, and this adventure is a really good adventure. It's a fixed growth spiral,
Growth
right?
spiral, yep.
So you get it. Yeah, so I say
Well,
fixed because it's sorcery speed, right? Because like growth
okay, so
spiral
you
is
meant
busted.
okay, so you meant fixed in the terms of busted. Got it. Okay. Because I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
well, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like a worse one, but I see what you mean.
It's fixed in the sense that growth spiral is
It's
freaking
fair.
dumb, right?
Yeah.
This is fair. This is more fair. So I get to create a clue token, and I may play an additional land, but I got to do it during my turn. So I'm
And
spending
that's
mana
worth it
during
to
my
me too.
turn. Yeah, it is, but in a blue deck, like I have to do this instead of holding up mana for a make disappear, right? Like it
Sure.
forces me to make important choices, and I think that's a good thing, right? Because
Oh yeah.
otherwise, I'm just like, well, I'll hold up make disappear, and then if they don't do anything that I want to counter, I'll do this, right? Well, that's just objectively better, and it's a little bit more busted. So by fixed, I mean it's more balanced, right?
Yeah, 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 sure.
Um, but it also gives you a clue token, which you can use, right away or the next turn, and then play this on turn 4. So, it's a good card, and I like the adventure. I like that they added an adventure to a creature or any card outside of an Eldraine set. And then we
Yeah.
just have a 3/4 with flying and vigilance. Like here we go again with the vigilance thing, which is
Yeah.
super important.
Yeah. Like having 4 toughness to be able to block is very, very formidable in the format right now because there's so many
Hmm.
3x. You know, it could
Yeah,
be a 3/1, but that 3/1 might have trample, or the 3/1 might have death touch, or whatever. You know, having that extra toughness to survive is very, very relevant. Um,
yeah, I agree.
and the ability that he has, uh, is on attack. It's not when he deals
Yes,
damage; it's on attack,
correct.
and that is
Yep,
busted.
right away. It is busted. And the thing that I like about it is that you can target your own stuff, right? It's not destroy up to one target artifact an opponent controls, right?
Correct.
So if you just have a worthless artifact sitting around or one that's not really doing anything, that's kind of been there after a couple of turns, you can destroy your own and draw a card.
Yeah.
Replace that sucker.
Yeah.
So
So
I
like
think
some
that's
of the
good too. So like overall this card is well balanced and is playable,
yeah.
if
So if
that
you
makes
throw
sense.
this in, let's see, Sultai or Bant, you have access to Restless Anchorage in Bant, which is the creature that when it
Hmm.
attacks, it creates a map token. And then when
Yep.
this attacks, you can sack that map token to draw a card instead of
Yeah,
trample
you
it.
can stack it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can stack the abilities so that you create the map token,
And
then
then if
sack the map token.
exactly, and then if you do Soul Tie, you have access to the cottage, which creates a food token. So like there's still like without much hindrance to deck building.
You can't stack them because even if you resolve this one later, you have to choose targets. Anyway, you can figure it out. You can get there, right?
Yeah, you can get there, but the point is like you have a consistent way to make that
Right.
possibility. Because I was thinking to myself, I
Yeah.
was like, it doesn't say enchantment or artifact. It's just
Mm-mm.
artifact. And I'm trying to think to myself, like, what artifacts are very relevant that have to be destroyed? There aren't too many in standard. It's mostly enchantments that you have to worry
Um,
about. But I can't think of
Mostly
artifact.
enchantments right
The
now,
the
but
only artifact that I know is a problem, and I don't mean like ban worthy. I just mean like it's a problem. I know I have a
uh,
hard time dealing with. I have to tear asunder all the time. Is that 2 and 1 or 2 and a red, and it's an artifact that at the beginning of combat you make a token that's a 1/1, put a gold
oh,
counter on
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
Like that
2/1, 3/1, 4/1. Yeah, that's
thing
the
will kill you.
anti-control card for. Yeah, that's the anti-control card for red. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like this deals with it. There
That's
are
the
some
only thing I
other
could really think of
artifacts.
that's very relevant, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of artifacts coming in this set that people are talking about, like the Codex. So I mean, you
Well,
still
like
have other
Lost Caverns of Ixalan had some other good artifacts.
Hmm.
What's the one? Chameleon Inner Sun, right? Like, get rid of that sucker, right? Because if you're playing blue green, you need to remove that sucker.
Yeah. So I mean, this card is definitely really good. This is probably the best Kellen we've got so far.
I agree. Yeah, I like
This
this
is
Kelvin.
definitely 100% best Kellen, and I would not mind trying to build not necessarily around it, but I'd probably put him like a 2 of in a either Sultai or Bant deck or my 5-color. Honestly.
Yeah,
He's
I do 2 of them, Bant.
yeah, definitely
Great.
a really good card. I like him. Let's see. Ooh, Lost.
Ooh, here we go. This is this is one that you and I got lost in the maze over.
Yeah, a lot of people have like downplayed this
Look at
card.
this card. Why is it only
This
$3?
dude, this
Dude,
card is
this
so
card is
good, and
dumb. It's so
it's
good.
so good. Like so many people are comparing it to what is it, the Mist of whatever. But the thing about this is that when you play Mist, they just phase out and come back in. These get
Yeah.
tapped with a stun counter, and not only
Yep.
that, you can hexproof your creatures.
Yes.
You
Yes.
can
That's the
protect
big
your
deal.
own
Is that second
creatures.
piece of this card,
Correct. Yeah.
right? So if they try to remove your blockers before combat, you throw this sucker in, tap their stuff down, give it a stun counter, give your stuff hexproof, and completely eliminate
Blow them
their
out. Yeah.
attack phase. Just blow them out because your
Not
stuff's going
only.
to untap.
Yep.
You're going to bang them in the face. Their stuff is still going to be stunned next turn. Bang them in the face again. This card, dude, I'm telling you, if this card doesn't go into either the mono blue or the blue white haughty gen deck, they're making a mistake.
Yeah. I mean, I'm running this in 5-color, 100%. Because with Invasion New
Mhm.
Phrasia, I put that out, and I need to get 3.
Oh,
At the end of your opponent's turn, I'm going to tap all your dudes. If you don't stop that,
yep.
the game's mine. So I'm going to
Yeah.
-2
Well, and your
steal.
creatures, your little tokens have vigilance
They
anyway.
have vigilance. Yep.
So, yep. So you're gonna
Yep.
tap them down, give them hexproof, eliminate their combat phase, untap your stuff, swing in for vigilance. They're gonna be tapped at the beginning of their turn, moving stun counters. Like this card is
Yeah.
good.
This
This
card is
card
really
should
good.
easily be an $8 card.
Yeah. And I think this is completely slept on and looked down on when it
Yeah.
shouldn't
Oh
be.
yeah. 100%. Yeah.
And this card
100%.
is going to blow people out. And this card is going to
This is
show.
going into
This
my
card is,
Zori's control in
yeah,
like 3F.
100%. I'm throwing this in Jeskai too. Like this is
Yeah.
going to jump up to
Absolutely.
about
Oh
10 bucks.
yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
don't
This is a good
I don't
card. Good card. Good.
I don't see this staying at $3 by any means.
So since
Let's
we're
see.
on that one, let's jump to outrageous robbery. It's number 11 on the list, but let's go
Okay.
ahead and talk about it because it's the black version and it's dumb. It's just as dumb. There
So
she
this
is.
I'm going to tell you this right out the bat. Props to Jim Davis. Love the dude. Hell of a Magic player, champion and everything. Mad respect for him. But he's completely
Yep.
wrong on this card. He says this is a trap card. This is not a trap card. And the thing he said is he
No.
said he'd rather
No.
play Gonti. No, you don't play Gonti over this. Because Gonti essentially kind of does the same. The good thing about Gonti,
Yeah.
do you remember Gonti?
Yeah.
Okay, so Gonti it gives you the body. And I get you get a
Yeah.
body out of it. 100% agree. And I think he has Death Touch if I remember right.
Mhm.
So you get to look at the top 4 cards and you choose one.
Yeah.
This, you don't get to choose. You just have all of them. It's an extra
Yes.
hand for the rest of the
Yeah.
game.
Can
And you
be.
could spend mana however you want. Like this
Here's
card
the other thing about this card.
is so dumb. It's so good.
It's
I
good.
love it. I
So
love
it's
it.
better than Siphon Insight. It's objectively better than Siphon Insight. Now,
Yes,
let's throw it in the
100%.
same deck as Siphon Insight, right? And let's throw 4 copies of Jason there.
I was just
This
gonna say the same
card,
thing. Yep. You're just
this is
milling
a
your
mill
opponent.
card.
Yeah.
This
You're
is a
just
mill
milling your
card.
opponent. Yep.
Because no matter whether you get it on turn 3, turn 4, turn 8, turn 10, right? Because now you're like, I'm going to rip 8 cards off the top of your deck on turn 10.
Yeah.
That's very crippling for any deck.
Yeah.
Because you're already at turn 10, you're looking at 2/3 of your deck left. Now you're going to take 25-40% of that deck, depending on if I'm playing Domain and you rip 8 cards off of my library on turn 10. Holy cow, you just kneecap the crap out of me because I'm probably drawing 2 cards, 3 cards a turn anyway, right? So you're milling me the crap out, and then you just pop your Jace, done and done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
And even if you're not milling me that turn, like, you just play my stuff. Because if you've got 10 mana to spend this sucker and rip 8 cards, you can play my Atraxas.
Yep. And like it's just the fact that they're there forever.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I think a lot of people are not really paying attention to is
And I like what you said, how it becomes a second hand.
mhm.
Oh, with Ashiok.
Ashiok might
Oh,
be good. Ashiok might be good.
brother. I didn't even think about that when I was
A lot of
pondering this
people a lot of
card.
people aren't thinking about Ashiok at all because Ashiok did nothing.
That card, 3
But Ashiok,
mana, you get the
yeah.
exile trigger. Yep, absolutely.
So if you where is it? Create 2/1/1 Black Nightmare creature tokens with at the beginning of combat on your turn. If the card was put into exile this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on the creature.
Yep.
So I can't remember because I haven't played Ashiok in so long. Is it per card they get a counter, or is it just any card, any amount?
It's going to combat on your turn if a card was put into exile. No, it's 1/1/1 counter regardless of how many.
Okay, which is still
If
fine because he still has the
it's
minus
basically
7.
if one or more. Yeah, exactly. It's
No, it was mostly
whatever.
the creatures with my train of thought, but I
Yeah,
forgot it was an
we're
A.
we're pumping up creatures and we're exiling or milling cards, right?
Mhm.
Because exile might as well be mill. Like this
Yes,
card goes
100%.
a long way towards pushing the mill win, which
Yeah.
some people have had good success with, especially against like domain decks, just by running Jays. But this card pairs really nicely with Siphon Insight and allows you to play your opponent's deck while you mill them out.
Jet
So
Sam.
this card, I'm glad you mentioned this card because this card was on the original list that I sent you. We didn't agree on it, and so I
I
pulled it
thought we
off the
did.
list.
Really?
No, we didn't. No, it wasn't on your list, so I took it off.
Oh.
But this card right here pairs really nicely with um, outrageous robbery, Jace. Now, as you pointed out, even Ashiok, right?
Yeah.
Like mill 3 cards, investigate. Cool. I'm gonna mill 3 and draw a card, but then you're gonna mill 3, and then I may cast a spell from your graveyard, right?
Without paying its mana cost.
Not one. Yep, not one that was milled, but any of them. So it's kind of like Jace's ability stapled to Atali's ability, right?
This would Jet Sam would actually trigger off of Ashiok as well if you just needed the one. So like you
Mm-hmm.
-2 Ashiok, you play Jet Sam, you mill 3, you
Mm-hmm.
what is each opponent's graveyard without paying a mana cost. If a spell is cast this way or we put into a graveyard exile, you cast an instant sorcery from the graveyard like Breach, and then it gets
Mm-hmm.
exiled, triggering the token, and then you get the Breach trigger still. Like
Yep.
it can I think Ashiok and Jace working together with Robbery and Jet Sam could be a deck in itself and
Yeah.
Siphon what is it? Siphon whatever.
Yeah. And let's just throw Lost in the Maze in there to slow your opponent down anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think a Demir Mill control deck
Yeah.
is a very
It's back,
viable deck.
baby. It's back,
And that
baby.
oh man, she's off. I think whoops, wrong button.
This
This
girl.
one
Oh my goodness.
a 4/4 for
Look,
4 with
here we
menace
are back again, 4
with
4 for
Wither.
4 on rate with menace under rate. Creatures you control have wither.
Yeah,
So here's
Wither's
what I was talking
awesome to
about,
bring
right?
back.
Evergreen mechanics that I think we should revisit in standard wither.
Yeah.
That's a great one, right? Because now they deal damage in the form of -1/-1 counters. Well, then
Right.
the next time they block or when they take enough, you draw a card.
hmm Um, the fact that they actually just put whenever creature and opponent control dies, if its type is less than 1, draw a card on top of this is just like ridiculous. I think
Yeah,
like if it was just a 4/4 for 4 with menace, creature you control have wither, that would have been enough.
yeah.
but they're like,
Yeah, it's the card draw that makes it over the top.
let's go ahead and just add
Because
some card
everything
draw
that's
to it.
dealt damage is going to draw you a card.
Yeah, but I mean that is on par for what Massacre Girl does. They just
Yep.
added a draw effect to it, so
Correct.
definitely really good.
All right, brother. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our review.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everybody stopping by again. Check out my other channel. It's a Ronin TCG. Do this. It's a card game I've been working on for quite some time now, and I haven't updated any videos as much, but go check it out, and then you can check the website out as well at RoninTCG.com. Ronin-TCG.com. So I'm almost done with the set. It's gonna be 200 cards.
Link will be in the description.
Yeah, it's 200 cards, and there will be secret rares. And this is a strategy-based trading card game. It's not a deck builder, based around martial arts and fighting. It has some mechanics from like Pokemon, Magic, and other like Hearthstone effects and things like that. So it is a strategic game. So check that out, give it a like, and we'll go from there. So,
Awesome.
all right, everybody. I appreciate everybody stopping by. Paul, I appreciate it, homie.
Absolutely. Anytime, Home Slice.
All right, man. We'll catch you later.
Peace.
Peace.